So I got this air pistol actually close to a year ago. It's a Beeman 2027 PCP. See, it has the air gauge there, kind of near the muzzle. Not the greatest location, but it's a pretty neat gun, 177 caliber. Being a PCP, it gives you a pretty good number of shots at a pretty decent amount of power. The manufacturer's claims, as far as that goes, are actually somewhat misleading in an unusual direction, because they claim it'll shoot up to 600 feet per second. Actually, the power is adjustable, and with this thing here, which adjusts the amount of compression of the hammer spring, I think it comes set for around 600 feet per second, but you can actually turn it up and actually get about 900 feet per second out of it. But not a lot of shots at that level of power. But I keep it fairly turned down as far as the velocity, just for plinking, and I get a pretty good number of shots out of that. It also has a 12-round magazine, which is nice. It's different from the Diana ones, but I've never had a problem with them. There's only two things I don't really like much about this gun. One of which, well, I can't really say I don't like it even, it just is what it is, but it is a really huge, heavy gun. It weighs just under 4 pounds, and for reference, the Smith & Wesson Model 29 44 Magnum weighs about, I think, 2 3/4 pounds. So it's really heavy and long, and I have pretty strong hands and arms, but even I get tired after shooting this thing for a while. I'm trying to hold it out there. And the other thing I'm not crazy about is the left-handed bolt, which, I understand the idea behind it, being that it's a repeater. Theoretically, you can hold it in your right hand and crank the bolt with your left hand, and you don't have to let go of it. Great idea in theory. In practice, I don't like it that much. I think it would be a heck of a lot easier just to hold it in your left hand and cock the bolt with the right hand, and then, re-grip it again. Like the Crossman pistols, the 2240, 1322, they all have the bolt on the correct side, and it works just fine, and I would prefer it to be that way. When I bought it, I actually was hoping that it would be possible to switch it to the other side, because I'm pretty sure there are some guns with a breech and bolt that looks somewhat like this that you can reverse, but from what I've been able to ascertain so far, it's not possible with this one. But it's not the worst thing in the world. Other than that, it is a pretty neat gun, but the weight of it and size and everything, it's so hard to hold on to the thing, and the grip also is kind of not that comfortable. It's just too fat in some places, and my hands are not small by any means. They probably look small next to this big old horse pistol, but it's in this area here, it's too fat. And the thing about it is, this gun just cries out to be turned into a carbine. And when I bought it, there weren't really any options for that I know of, but since the time that I've had it, this guy down in Texas with a little one-man operation called Buck Rail actually came out with a carbine stock kit for it, kind of a very AR-15 looking stock that can replace the original one there, and that just came in the mail this morning, so I'm looking forward to trying that out. It's 3D printed for the most part. Actually, the grip is an actual cheapo AR-15 grip, and this bit of the collapsible stock is actually a Magpul collapsible stock but the tube and the the rest of this bit here is all 3D printed. And as far as 3D printing goes, it looks pretty good. There's nothing that really needed to be cleaned up with a file or anything like that on it. So, not bad. One issue with the collapsible stock, there actually is a bit of, when I first got this, the little release thing here, it was so stiff that it pretty much, I thought it was broken at first actually, but in continuing to use it, it's kind of worn itself in. But this other thing here still kind of hangs up a little bit. I mean, it still locks the stock, but it has to be kind of pushed down to seat fully. But it's actually improving. I'm sure that'll kind of wear in also with time. I can kind of see some plastic burrs in there. I'm not about to try to take that apart to smooth it out. I mean, it basically works fine. And also, he makes a moderator for it, which is the first time I've ever bought one of these. It's totally legal for air guns, everybody tells me, so I finally bit the bullet, and there were no FBI agents waiting at the post office for me, so I guess everything went fine with that. So got these goodies here. Also, I should mention, I've had this kind of partly assembled, well, completely assembled basically, other than attaching it on the gun, but I did have to use a long 1/2-inch socket to seat that bolt in there to bolt this together. So it's a pretty clever design. It seems to be rugged enough. I imagine if you were to really bang on the stock either this way or this way, that this bit here where that bolts into probably could break off. But I mean, for an air gun, it seems to be pretty reasonable. So I'm gonna take all this back inside and tinker with it and get it all put together and put these goodies on there, and then do some shooting. So here it is, all kitted out. Pretty handy looking. Forgot to mention there is also a hand guard with Picatinny rails on it that you can get for this. That goes on the fore end, kind of. I wasn't planning on putting any kind of accessories or whatever on there, so I decided to save the $20 and not get that. But I might end up getting one eventually anyways, just for the looks. It does sort of fill it out, but it's pretty good just as it is. Nothing wrong with just holding on to the air tube. Collapsible stock is, whoops, it's pretty handy when you get the hang of it. On the the longest setting is pretty much where I like it, but it is kind of nice that you can make it really compact. Got a cheap little Tasco red dot on there, which was not my first choice for a sight, or my second or third, but I actually tried to use the original rear sight, and it was such a good idea that I had that it's really a shame that it didn't work out. But the rear sight was on the back there and sticking out the end, and of course made to be used as a pistol, and when you put a shoulder stock on it, it's just too close to your eye to work. So I tried to take it off and put it up in front of the magazine, and actually mounts on a little base that fits on the dovetail groove there. But there was just no way that I could make it fit on there and work with the magazine. Actually, I thought I had it. I found that the base, the screw holes in the base are closer to one end to the other, and I figured if I put it on there backwards, I could actually get it like, half an inch of it on the rail, and with the grub screw on the one of them on there and the other one just touching down on the barrel so it wouldn't bend. But then when I put the sight on the base, I found that there was nowhere for the elevation adjustment screw to go, because it has a little hole drilled in the base where it lines up, but when you turn it around backwards it doesn't match. So unfortunately, after a whole lot of fiddling, and I even filed my barrel grub screws flush to get it on there, but it just didn't work out, which is a shame, because I really would have preferred to use the iron sights on there. And I tried a couple of different scopes that I had also, but none of them would fit over the top of the magazine. My rings are all fairly low profile rings, and so I needed some rings that are a little bit taller to get a scope to work. And finally I found the old crusty red dot there that does actually fit on there with the magazine. So I finally got something usable. So I have not shot it yet, so I'll try out a couple of shots on some cans, and hopefully the red dot will cooperate. It kind of flickers and turns itself off sometimes, but we'll see how it does. The left-handed bolt really is a terrible design on this thing, because the magazines have to load from the right, so there's a lot of annoying switching hands, but yeah, it does work. Whoop, turn the red dot on. Get the can anyways. Looks like the red dot is pretty much right on, without any adjustments. That's pretty nice. And that suppressor moderator is really working pretty good, because without it this thing is unbelievably loud. I'll take a shot just off into the distance so you don't have the sound of the can interfering with it. That's incredibly quiet compared to what it was. And I've either got one, no, I think that was my last one. Yeah. Well, that was pretty slick. I definitely enjoy shooting this as a carbine a whole lot more than a rifle. Actually had my stock a little shorter than I had intended there, but I forgot to mention the trigger on this gun, which is kind of an infamous trigger that is also used on a lot of the cheaper Crosman guns. Infamous for usually having a really long pull that's hard to be accurate with. And I almost didn't buy this gun for that reason, but I looked online and found that there are some solutions for it, including the if you look up the Crosman trigger RC bearing fix or something like that, you'll come across it, where you put a little 9mm bearing in there in the trigger, which makes the pull a lot smoother and shorter. In the case of this one, I did find that using the adjustment screw that's in there and setting it to be as short as possible actually made it a pretty decent trigger pull. And as I've said before, I'm very very picky about triggers, But it's pretty good the way I've got it set now. You also can get a longer screw that adjusts that the trigger pull length. If you get a longer screw, you can shorten it up even more. But in the case of this gun, I found that it wasn't necessary. The one that's in there, definitely shortened it up enough, and it has a pretty good trigger pull. There's just a very slight bit of take up, and then it breaks, pretty predictably. I have another Crossman gun, or actually a Benjamin. It's a Benjamin Titan nitro piston, and the trigger is just so long on that one, the trigger pull, that you just pull it forever and you never quite know when it's going to break. But there's no trouble like that with this one. So for all my complaining about it, for some of its various features, I actually I like this gun, and I really like this buck rail stock set. Definitely is a major improvement. And even the bolt, I'm kind of getting used to, and it's not the worst thing in the world. I've had this gun, like I said, for almost a year, but I actually haven't shot it enough hardly to really break it in. So, finding that it's kind of smoothing itself out as I shoot it. Couple more shots. Alright, so it's been three at the power level that I have it set at. I get basically 4 magazines out of a charge. I've done 3 so far, and it's about 3/4 of the way down. So I'll get another magazine out of it, and actually I won't be quite down to the end of the green zone on the gauge there, which is about, I don't shoot it down to empty. I go down to 1,000 psi before I pump it back up to 3,000, and I get a pretty good number of shots. So definitely never had a problem with that with this gun, and a decent amount of power for plinking too. I might even dial it down a little bit more, just to be a little more conservative on air. Or if you wanted a really compact little hunting carbine, you can crank it all the way up to 900 feet per second. But you don't get a lot of shots on that amount of power. It is a pretty small tank, but I forget how many cubic inches or whatever this is, but I get about the same number of shots out of this gun as I do out of my Diana Storm Rider 22 with a bigger tank, but also using more air. That shoots a 22 at 900 feet per second, and this is 177 set for significantly slower than that. But alright, that's enough yakking. That's the gun and the stock set, which are definitely pretty good. Thanks for watching.